Let's start our session, folks. And before starting our session, I'll be discussing few things. Now, as I told you, one of the focal points of this particular initiative is also for you to challenge yourself and transform yourself in terms of health. And often, as I told you in my previous sessions as well, often a lot of servants, especially from the police services, ask me about fitness, and I tell them that I mean, it doesn't matter how much do you work in your gym, or how much do you train. It does not matter if you're not able to maintain your diets. So there is an acronym that I want you to remember, which is called as DUES. Now, DUES stand for your diet, your exercise, then your water intake and your sleep. These are the four constituents which will completely determine how you think, how you feel, and how your body reacts to everything. I think, is there a gap? Just a second, folks. Yes. So I guess there was a lag. So I was telling you about that there are four things which are extremely important. There's an acronym called as DUES. So it's basically your diet, your exercise regime, the water intake that you take, and the sleep that you have. If you are able to control these four elements reasonably well, then you can transform yourself both physically, mentally, emotionally. All these that thing that you have in your mind, that this is what I aspire to be. Can be the way out. Now, one of the most important components of it is diet. Now, I'm not sure whether any of you has ever kept a track of how much do you eat and how many calories do you take. Now, typically an individual requires somewhere around 2000 calories if you are having a sedentary lifestyle. Most of us have a sedentary lifestyle, but if you have to walk a little, and then if you're into physical exercises, then maybe 23-2400 calories. Now, another thing that you should be, and I'll be uploading on the Google Classroom a typical diet chart. Now, what this typical diet chart is, this is the diet chart that I follow. You can incorporate according to your own needs, but what you need to understand is that how much calories are you are getting from fat, how much calories you are getting from carbohydrates, and how much calories you are getting from protein. Now, one of the ways to transform yourself is to cut off all sugar, all refined sugar from your life. Anything that has added sugar. In fact, even I've gone another level where I'm trying to control not just added sugar, but also any kind of sugar that I'm taking. And even the fruit consumption is pretty low for me these days. And types of fruits also. At times I also see what is the GI index of a particular fruit. What basically that means is, as soon as I eat a particular fruit, does my sugar level in my body shoot up or not. So all of these things I try to see. So you need to maintain a diet chart where you need to be on a reasonable deficit if you want to lose weight, and you have to be on a reasonable surplus if you want to gain weight. So right now I am into a phase where I'm trying to lose, and I'm trying to have a proper shape, and because of that I'm on a deficit side. So have that. And the other thing is exercise, as I've already discussed, that 40 minutes of any kind of exercise. Water, there is a range to it. Make sure that you are especially in the weather that we are living in, you're well hydrated, at least 4 to 5 liters, maybe 3 to 4 liters with electrolytes. They are sugar free electrolytes. I can refer certain names to you. For example, I have a BCAA that I have twice a day. So adequate electrolytes which will keep the sparks in your brain working. And then you have the fourth thing, which is sleep. Anything below maybe a 6.5 7 hours sleep might be detrimental. I'm also suffering from this because in fact my sleep cycle is such that I don't sleep more than 5 hours. So but that's, having said that, that's not very healthy. but that's something that I need to improve. So these are 3 4 things that I want you to maintain, and these are as important as academics, folks. Do not think of this as not being important, prioritizing any other things more than this. If this part you're able to take care, the other part will automatically start to fall into place, because it will require discipline to basically do this. And if you have discipline in one aspect of your life, it is likely that discipline will have a kind of an overlay impact or an externality over the other part of your life as well. So anyone who's well built, who has a toned body, I what I see when I see that person is, that person is disciplined. That person can resist these urges that are there, and that is a true hallmark of a good candidate as well. So therefore I ask students to practice that along with their studies, and you will see the impact in terms of your learning abilities, in terms of your concentration abilities. All of that you will see with due time. So this was regarding the generic thing. Now I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you. We're going to discuss uh, the a post and a particular quote. Now I've posted this morning motivation. Now morning motivation, what I've quoted is, so this is by Rajan Singh. Now if you see, a day before, just a second, folks, let me see if my, yes, this is by Rajan Singh. As I told you, he's a former IPS officer. He posts regularly on LinkedIn. Now he talks about that. You already know that how many people appeared for the civil services exam. Now what happens is that the experience that you get in this particular job is absolutely unparalleled. The kind of responsibilities that you're going to get is absolutely unparalleled. But at the same point of time, I have seen a lot of my classmates. For example, one of my classmates, I'll not name, is in the very high position in the government. But at the same point of time, when I ask him about the technological developments that have been happening, for example, how GPT can be used, if he has used GPT or any of the AI products, so I mean he says that he doesn't get time. So what happens is that while your rank keeps improving, the the capacities and the capability that you have tends to stagnate. And if someone takes away that rank in your job, what are you able to keep? What are you capable of doing on your own? In fact, that reminds me of a quote from the Honorable Prime Minister. He said that one of the reasons that he gets a lot of energy, and you can find this on YouTube as well, is that he's a lifelong learner. And someone who's a lifelong learner will always stay young, will always stay energetic. So something, I mean, this learning curve should not stop at a time that you secure a good rank in the civil services. So it should keep on moving, and you'll find a lot of civil servants who are doing a really good job. You are posting on LinkedIn what is happening, being abreast of technological breakthrough that is happening throughout the world. Then apart from that, what happens in the private sector is that you will be only be employed if there is a competitive force on you, if you're constantly learning new things. So because of that small learning aspect, because every year, for example, learning from one skill set to another skill set, earlier coding was important, now you need to know how to code using GPTs. Then the next thing will be how to use AGI. So anything which you are learning over time will compound, and compounding, as we all know in finance, has magical powers. And at the same point of time, this is an exam where most of the participants lose. There are 5 6 lakh people who have appeared. How many will eventually win? Around 800 900, maybe 1,000. So but at the same point of time, every year you have a new cohort joining this rat race. So this was a good thought for you, that how to be a lifelong student. And then there's another quote that I've given to you from MS Swaminathan. I mean, which is on agriculture. That agriculture is not just a piece of land I mean, which provides a means of livelihood. It's in our culture. It's in our future, and ensuring food security for particularly for the resource poor is the greatest challenge that we face today. And this is kind of a quotation that you can use in your agrarian answer. So agriculture, especially people who are writing mains this year, you will definitely get a question on agriculture. Now you should see the kind of questions that are there. You will get one question on this thing, you will get a question on PDS, you might get a question on food processing industries. So you should have good quotations to end your answers, or maybe start your answers. That is the extra 20, going the extra mile, and you need to remember this, and you might use this in your essays as well. So as I told you, that I've always maintained a small register, and that register has been there with me since 2009, and I've keep writing my quotations there. So make sure you maintain a register where on the back side you can maybe write words like I used to do, and on the front end I used to write quotations, and those quotations I used very heavily in my essays, and that's why I've always scored decently in essays, and then an exceptional score in my last attempt. So therefore these are the things that I wanted to share. Now let us move. Let me just now let us folks move to our meditation cycle. So we'll meditate for 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to our journaling, followed up by a current affairs of the previous day. Okay folks, let's meditate folks for 5 minutes. Please shut off your eyes and try to think about don't try to think about anything except for a focus on your breathing cycle. All right. So let's see yesterday's paper folks. Yesterday's paper, let's go to again the meat of the paper, and then we'll go to the other parts. Yes, the editorial pages. And as I told you, always try to cover the editorials first and then other things, so that you don't miss on any analysis. Now less taxing. Now this is an issue that we were also talking about yesterday. That was the first point of news on the front page, that the government is thinking of rationalization of tax. Now first thing you should know, that the more we have direct taxes, the better it is. Indirect taxes are regressive in nature in general, and direct taxes are progressive in nature. Now you should also note what is our tax to GDP ratio. It should be somewhere around 11%. And what is the share of that from direct taxes, and the share that is coming from indirect taxes. I believe it is around 55 to 45, but please do check it. I'm not very updated with this particular number. Now then coming to the issue. Now if you remember, in yesterday's class we were talking about that how the consumption, the private final consumption expenditure had only grown by 4%. Now this is something, as an economist, especially people from economics background, even from GS, you can write that this is a major problem that we are facing, that the corporate investment is not picking up. The government is doing the heavy lifting in terms of investment cycles. The corporate investment has not picked up, and the other big thing is that the household consumption is not very great. It's growing by, or in general, the consumption, the private final consumption expenditures are at 4%. Now if you want to have a sustainable growth, you need these two you need these two elements. Why? Because if you see 70% of our especially 60% of our GDP is actually is basically coming from your consumption, and around 30% is from investment. So you need these two engines to fire properly. Now some of the suggestions that have been there is that you can examine the capital gains tax, that there are different tax rates on different commodities, investment options, asset classes, and varying different periods. So maybe you can rationalize that. You can also rationalize GST. We were talking about, actually in the world you have only two slabs, a merit slab and a demerit slab. Whereas in India you have a 0% slab, you have a 5% slab, then you have a 12% slab, then you have a 16% slab, and then you have a 28% slab. So you have too many slabs. In between also there are certain slabs. So therefore what we need is some kind of rationalization of these slabs, and also possible inclusion of the petroleum items. But this would require a support, a bipartisan support from the state governments as well, because it has to be passed by the GST Council. Now students who are not aware what the GST Council is, I advise you to read about what GST Council is and what is the the formulation and then the weightage of GST Council and the voting process of the GST Council. Then in terms of number of taxpayers, it has definitely increased. Now we have around 9.37 crore direct taxpayers, and of this, if you see it, there are around 9 crores which are individual taxpayers. Apart from that, the registrations on the indirect tax, the active GST taxpayers are around 1.4 crores. So and the government had basically to give a fillip to the entire corporate sector, had reduced the corporate tax to 22% in 2019. But despite all of these, the upcycle in the corporate investment has not paved its way the way the government had expected. Now the second thing, now again another thing, especially for people who are writing this year's mails. Now there are certain topics that you can note in a separate copy, where, or a separate part of your register, where you can just write down that you are going to use these case studies. Now one of the case studies that you can use is infantilizing the learners. Now we've heard about this thing, and this is a very good debate topic when it comes to your interviews as well. That social scientists often refer to this adage that past lives in present. There has been this comments by the head of NCRT, DP Saklani, who said that why do we need to have the Gujarat riots or the Babri Masjid demolitions in the NCRT political science textbooks. The idea is that we should, and I could extend that reasoning and say that why do we then study about what happened to Jews in the Second World War? Why can't we also erase that? We should erase the entire history of Hitler then, and all the sufferings that had happened. We should also erase the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So where does that this is slippery slope? Where do we take this argument forward? And in fact we should and in general, it's not as if you remove this it's going to have any kind of major impact, because in the age of social media, the students are going to have information not just from books but from other sources as well. So why to avoid these uncomfortable things, and why not incorporate this critical thinking among students, that this is what has happened in India, this is how the evolution of our constitution, our society and our culture has done, and they can then learn from this history. So this is something which is important. We should learn from history, and it's our past which should guide our present as well. So if you have done certain mistakes in our past, we should be remembering those mistakes so that we don't repeat them in future. So I think there is this adage called history repeats itself. So something like that which we should avoid, especially the negative connotations. Similarly, there have been revisions in the past as well. For example, the president's rule in BJP ruled states, then the regret over happenings of Ayodhya, or the poverty and powerlessness of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. A lot of these has been reduced. So these are all seminal events, and we should be abreast with the latest research and debates among scholars, and we should not end up infantilizing the learners. So let them learn on their own. We should not guide them that what you should study and what you should not study. Then Ask Steve, another quirky news. What has happened is that there is this person in Great Britain called, I think his name is Steve Endicott. Now what he has done is said that he's made a AI bot called as, he has a company called, he's a company and he has a AI called as AI Steve, which is now going to be represented in the with the conventional candidates in Sussex. And he has built a bot where whatever the constituents want, that it's a 24/7 representative that is there. Now and again the last line really interested me, that all and in fact there is this line that you can pick up, that democracy, the first line, the democracy is the worst form of government except for all others. Now deliberative democracy, and you can use this quotation in number of ways in ethics or essay as well, that yes, democracy has its own problems, it comes with its own problems, it is tough to deliberate, it's tough to come up with a consensus, it is cumbersome, but it is also necessary. As compared to any other form, it has its own weakness, but as compared to any other form of governance, this is the best among all of them. And this is what the last line also says: democracy has its own faults, but not least that those chosen can reflect the best of the worst of the constituents that they represent. But that isn't the point. Asking leaders without human flaws is asking to elect an authoritarian. This is something that you can end with. So a quotation that you can use in democracy and democratic deliberations as well. Then comes the next article, which is Bharat in the world, Bharat's way in the world. Now this article again talks about that what we need to do, and how important we are to the West now. And there are 2 3 very important lines that I want you to take up, especially people with PSIR as a background, and also even in your IR answers you can write these examples, that when we say that the diplomatic currency of India has increased, or the diplomatic wealth or the diplomatic depth of India has increased, you should give examples of that, you should exemplify that. Now the article starts with the fact that the West is looking, and remember this I'm forgetting the name of the Italian prime minister, and the seven dwarfs, and the six lame ducks. So it was that is why the center stage was taken by honorable prime minister, because he emerged as very strong leader domestically as well. Yes, Giorgia Meloni. Basically the West is looking towards India, and it's not looking towards India for a just as in the past, as a spiritual search for spiritual masters. So it's not an episodic romance with India is not new, but it is not time for another new age Helena Blavatsky's search for spiritual masters, but a promise where India can be a Vishwamitra, Vishwabandhu, Vishwaguru, and Vishwarakshak. Now I want you to take this line forward and use that as a conclusion of maybe one of your IR answers. So have these templates ready. In fact, I was watching certain toppers copies, and there was this YouTube this thing I think lecture on the website and on the YouTube channel of Ajiram Ravi, and they were discussing about the templates of different toppers. And yes, I do agree with that you should have templates ready for your each particular subtopics. For example, IR, or maybe this is one of the templates: government policy, SDGs, your fundamental rights, fundamental duties. These are your templates that you can always give as the ending point of your answer, so you can note this down. And the other thing is that let's I was telling you about that, how important India's diplomacy has become during this the peak of the Gaza violence on March 11. The special envoy of India, Ajit Doval, the national security advisor, met Benjamin Netanyahu, and they were talking about a ceasefire during Ramadan, and which almost took place, but then there were issues there, but 2 weeks later the same resolution was adopted by UN Security Council, and that was taken up. Similar to this is that how we have been able to maintain a strategic autonomy. We have very good relationship with US. We have very good relationship with Russia as well. Energy, as I told you, energy and defense relationship. At the same point of time, we have had extremely good relationship with West Asia these days. We have had a strategic relationship with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, and we've used these channels to have a breakthrough in terms of ceasefire at the LOC. So and plus we also attempt to have a meeting between Putin and Zelensky of this thing of Ukraine. So which shows that India has spread. All of this shows that India is able to sit at the tough spot in the diplomatic circles, and then help parties negotiate to a better outcome. So this is something which we've been able to do in the high stake tables of international relation. So this is something. This is another line that I want you to take up. That out of box ideas which have had traction at the high table of international relations. High table of international relations is a good line to use. Then last thing that I want you to take out of this article is that why we need a stable neighborhood. We cannot. There is a quotation that I remember. This thing, you cannot change your geography. So your neighbors will always remain your neighbors. So therefore, if you see throughout history, no country has basically ascended to great power without securing stability and influence in its immediate neighborhood. If your immediate neighborhood is volatile, it's not stable, it is literally impossible for you to develop, because there will be some ramifications on you. Take the example of Roman Empire, take the example of US, take the example of Mauryan Empire to Vijayanagar to Chola kingdoms. All these neighborhoods have been critical. The neighborhood of these regions have been critical for their prominence. So this is something that again you can use as an ending of your answer, or maybe a beginning of your answer, that why do we need peace, why do we need tranquility in our neighborhood. And then rest of the article you can read, folks. Then the shadow of cost. The shadow of cost is basically, now this is a working paper. People who are writing mains this year, again I want you to read about the key highlights of the World Inequality Labs, which shows widening of rich and poor. In India, the overall Gini coefficient has fallen down, but if you see the top 1%, the inequality that is there in the top 10% and the top 1% versus the rest of the country, that has increased. But what this article basically says is that going beyond the obvious metrics of Gini coefficient and percentile ratio, you can examine the inequality, especially the consumption inequality that is there among scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, using the periodic labor force data. And it is said that both STs, SCs and OBCs underrepresented when it comes to their consumption, their share in population and the share in consumption, whereas the general category is overrepresented. But another point that I want you to note, and this data is something that you should have in your pockets ready, is that the Gini coefficient has decreased from 0.359 to 0.309, which shows a decrease in inequality, folks. Make sure you draw this point that in terms of Gini coefficient, we have reduced an inequality, and closer it is to 0, the more equal the countries, and closer it is to 1, the more unequal the countries. And this Gini coefficient has dropped for almost all communities. But what is more important is that if you see the distribution among the bottom 20%, the bottom 20% is where the huge problem lies. And even in the consumption, the top 20%, the top 20% decile of the general category has seen significant increase in the consumption cycle. So what we are seeing is that the bottom 20% is stagnating or is reducing, and the top 10% is increasing, but the overall inequality is decreasing. So this is the kind of paradox that we are facing, and we need to go beyond. We have made remarkable strides in multidimensional poverty, inequality, but at the same point of time, much more needs to be done for the socio-economic challenges that we face, especially at the community and the caste level. So this is the article that this talks about. Then let's talk about another article, which is let's do 1991 without crisis. Give me a second, folks. Then let's do 1991 without a crisis. Now this particular article talks about that how we have again, because of the crisis after crisis that has come up. We came up with the global financial crisis of 2008, then the eurozone crisis of 2010, then we had the covid crisis, and all of them, what it has done is that the protectionism and the industrial policy and the self reliance has taken another level. Now on one hand we say that we are going to be atmanirbhar, we want to have our own markets, but at the same point of time we want to become a part of GVCs, and we want to target a $1 trillion export. Now these two aims are not reconciling. The aim of export promotion and import substitute industrialization, they don't reconcile together. And if we have to become a part of the GVCs, now folks who do not know what GVCs are, it's basically global value chains, where production these days doesn't happen in one particular country, production happens in multiple countries. For example, the chip designing or the AI portion of the entire, and the OS portion of the entire iPhones is designed in California. The mobiles are made in China, the chipsets are made in Taiwan, and the marketing might be done in India. So this shows a global value chain. Now if we have to if we have to, and what happens is that once you are a part of global value chain, then you can progress within that value chain. Initially you are only assembling products, then you might make certain products, and from making that products, what might happen is you can make the entire product on your own. This is what has happened with China as well. China, from being an assembler of products, has now become a manufacturer of products. So this is the benefit that you get from being a part of the global value chains. But the aspect that you cannot be part of global value chains if you have export pessimism. You have to open up your economy, and you cannot have these import tariffs, so as to say. So this is something that you need to note. At the same point of time, one of the reasons that we had these reforms of 1991 was because of the crisis, and then those were the first generation reforms of trade. But after that, the second generation and the third generation reforms of trade did not take place, because we started to realize that we are having a trade deficit. But at the same point of time, remember, especially people from economics would remember something like a J curve, that at times what might happen, and this is something that I'm postulating, I'm not claiming it to be true, that initially you might face that there might be a trade deficit, but once you start improving in your GVCs, then you can probably have a trade surplus as well. So the economic isolation strategy has changed for better, and now we have signed, after 9 years, we have signed multiple agreements, and this is something that you should note. India signed a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with Mauritius, and then India UAE CEPA, the India-Australia Economic and Trade Partnership, and recently we have signed a trade and economic partnership with EFTA countries, which is a customs union, the Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, and Liechtenstein. Now you should also note what a customs union is, what is a monetary union, what is an economic union. This is something, as a student of economics, you should be aware of. Now what we have also resisted to sign is a couple of major RTAs, regional trade agreements. For example, RCEP, you should know the members of RCEP, and the comprehensive progressive trans-Pacific partnership is something that we have resisted till now. At the same point of time, even at WTO, while we are championing the global south, we have resisted to sign agreements like on e-commerce and on services, which basically shows that maybe we are afraid of something. Then and if we and we also, you can read this on your own. And then in recent years, what we have also to offer to the entire world is digital public infrastructure like Aadhaar, ONDC, all of this, or Cowin app. So all of this is low cost software version of China's physical infrastructure, which is the Belt and Road Initiative. At the same point of time, if we wish ourselves to be the rule shaper as opposed to be the rule taker, we need to demonstrate to the world that that we are also going to be the part of the global world trade cycles, and we are not going to be inward looking. So this is an article which kind of champions the need for opening our economy. Then on the explain page, folks, we have this story of Nikhil Gupta, which is not very important for us. If you want to read it, you can. Kerala's migration story again is something very peculiar. If you are a Keralite, maybe you can read this article. There are only two articles that I'm interested in here. One is mifepristone. Now mifepristone is basically a pill for abortion, and along with misoprostol. Now this is a two-part drug regime for abortions. Now a number of people who have taken to FDA to the Supreme Court and said that since the Supreme Court had said, the federal court has said and overturned a famous judgment, Roe versus Wade. Now this is something that you should be aware of. What is this Roe versus Wade? You can use this in your essays as well, that how judicial intervention in the world are changing and becoming more conservative. So this could be an example of courts being very conservative. Now what this Supreme Court, the apex court of United States had overturned Roe versus Wade. Effectively, it had said that there is no federal right of abortion, but at the same point of time, this drug is easily available in the market and it can be used for abortion. Now it's a two phase drug. You should be aware of it in general for your GS as well. Now the first drug, what it helps, it blocks progesterone. Now progesterone basically helps in maintenance of pregnancy, and misoprostol prostol, which basically triggers uterine contractions, because of which the body expels the fetus. So you should, in general, you should be aware of this particular phenomenon, especially progesterone, which is important for maintenance of pregnancy. And then the entire article is regarding that how the apex court basically said that you are not a party to this, and therefore we are not going to take your this thing case. Then the other thing is DSR cultivation. DSR cultivation. Now direct seeding of rice. Now traditionally what the farmers do is that traditional farmers of Punjab, they plant their paddy, the rice, in a nursery, and after few days what they do is they, after 20-25 days in from these nurseries, they replant this young plants in flooded fields. Now what happens is that because of the technique, this is very water intensive, the use of water is very high, and also the use of labor is also high. So this is labor intensive, water intensive. As compared to this, there is another method, which is direct seeding of rice. What happens in this case is they do not require any nursery preparation or transplantation. The seeds are directly sown into the field after 20 to 30 days ahead of when they should have been transplanted. And you can use multiple techniques, lucky seeder or seed drill for this. And then irrigation happens in multiple rounds. In 3 to 4 rounds you have irrigation that is done. Now what the benefits are, that the yield is much more in this particular method, the water usage is much less, and also the this thing is also less, the labor consumption is also less. But what is important, why people don't take it up, is because they have had bad experiences. Why they have had bad experience is because you should know the texture of the soil, you should know the iron content of the soil. The texture of the soil should not be light. A light soil basically means which lacks in clay, and it cannot retain water. A heavy to medium textured soil, what it does, it can retain water because it has less of sand and more of clay. So this can be used in heavy to medium textured soil, but in light textured soil this is not very useful. Then the other thing is iron content. Iron content is also very important for this. Soils which do not have iron will not be able to use it properly. For example, soils where we have grown cotton, maize, sugarcane earlier have already drawn a lot of iron from the soil. So therefore, doing the DSR cultivation might not be ideal. And for supplements, the farmer should use ferrous iron, which is green in color and which is not oxidized. As soon as anything becomes oxidized, it will become red or brown in color. Then the way forward is basically to handhold these farmers towards understanding their soil through their soil health card, and then transiting them towards this particular sustainable method. You can maybe read about another method which is called as SRI, for cultivation of rice. Then the last news is EU anti-subsidy action mechanism to verify tax refunds in pipeline. So basically, they're also they had imposed countervailing duties. We were giving subsidies, export subsidies to our farmers, and when someone through the scheme called as RODEP, now, which is remission of duties and taxes on exported products. So if a particular exporter is providing is doing exports, what we used to do is we used to reduce their price by giving them refunds of the taxes they have paid, or duties, their customs duties that they might have paid on importing of any stuff. So this scheme is called as RODEP, which is run by the Ministry of Commerce. Now, what the US and EU has done is, they've seen these these refunds, and they've imposed they've seen these particular schemes as export promotion schemes and export promotion subsidies, and in counter to that they've imposed countervailing duties for this. So you can read about this particular article as well. Then I want you to read the first page. There's one article on the first page. Maybe you can read. Wait. Netanyahu dissolves war cabinet after key partner quits, and amid Russia-China threat, NATO talks about deploying of more nukes. But the news that you might want to follow is alarm bells as heat wave pushes the peak power demand, and utilities ask power ministry has asked utilities to be on high alert. Because of the heat, this thing waves, the amount of power that is being required has increased, but at the same point of time we have not been able to add sufficient amount of thermal power or renewable powers to our grid, because of which there are outages. And if you see on the second page, folks, you might see certain information that might be important for you, that renewable energies, we've added since March 2020, we have added around 12,000 megawatts of thermal power, while renewable we have added around 56 megawatts, and by the way, 1000 megawatts is equal to 1 gigawatt as well. And at the same point of time there can be grid disturbances, because we have a peak power demand of 250 gigawatts these days. But the problem with the I think I don't have electricity, folks. I might have to stop here.